on the killing of Black people by police officers and Black poverty, that you kind of see the same maps. HIV is happening in the places where police violence happens a lot. And then when the COVID-19 pandemic began to break out, I started seeing the same maps, both in St. Louis, where I've been doing research, and also in New York City. And that seems strange to me because HIV and SARS-CoV-2 are extremely different viruses. They move differently. They have very different virological components to them, but they were happening in the same places. And that's because there are all these social determinants of health that place people in the path of viruses and also make their bodies less likely to be able to defend them. Even when we look at something like with COVID-19, it's primarily killing people who are elderly. People who are in nursing homes that are in poor areas are much more likely to die. And so we're seeing something similar again now with monkeypox, that it's happening to not only men who have sex with men in the United States, but as the Washington Post reported last week, about 2/3 of the cases are happening towards Black and brown people. And certainly anecdotally, I haven't seen good research on this now, but certainly anecdotally, white people and professionals like myself who have time on their hands have been able to get vaccines. And if we don't deal with that, then we're going to see upper class people getting access to the monkeypox vaccine, while poor people, Black and brown people, get less access to it. And with LGBT people, something that I think can help viewers understand why it's the social determinants. You know, we know that there's some kind of sexual transmission component with something like HIV or monkeypox. But with COVID, LGBTQ people were more likely to get sick, more likely to die of COVID. And that's not because there's any sort of sexual component to.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well today. Today is Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. And what important information we just heard from Democracy Now! It's the world itself is compelling, demanding a lot of our attention. We have to pay attention on the political, on the cultural, on the health front. I was glued to the report that ran overtime on Amy Goodman's show about the emergence of monkeypox. So just a word to all of us here, as we have and continue to be vigilant about COVID-19, the fact that it's not going away, it's morphing into new threats for all of us. We have other threats entering the health arena as well. So let us be mindful, let us be careful, let us arm ourselves with information and develop, maintain, and create protocols that keep us safe and keep people around us, our communities, safe as well. Well, today's program is a great one. I'm pleased to have as a guest joining me by video conference here or by Zoom, StreamYard, Lynnette R. Freeman, and she's one of the stars in this evening's opening of the Pulitzer Prize winning drama by, let's see, I'm having a senior moment here. The drama is about the Sweat by Lynn Nottage. There we go. Lynn Nottage's play Sweat, directed by Tamala Woodard, is at the proscenium stage, the McGuire proscenium stage in the Guthrie Theater, starting tonight. So this play is about her research and the creation of a story on the town of Reading, Pennsylvania. Reading is a blue-collar town with generations of hardworking people who have worked at this place called Olsted's Factory, and they drink beer together after hours. But in the post-Y2K economy, which is changing, there's a new reality and rumors fly about layoffs coming. So promotions and pride ultimately collide. They form cracks in decades-old friendships that crumble when the factory breaks with the union. And from the politically charged opening scene to the electrifying conclusion, Sweat boldly confronts issues of race, immigration, deindustrialization, and the ever-slipping grip on the middle-class life, all with Lynn Nottage's signature humor and heart. First of all, let me welcome one of the stars of the play, Lynnette Freeman. Lynnette, good afternoon. Welcome to Conversation. The
Good
Conversation with Al McFarlane.
afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad to have this
Yes.
conversation with you. So great to be here with you. Talk about the play. I've read summarized the Guthrie's presentation, but from your role in it, talk about your role and the messages that are being delivered in this experience.
Yes. So I play the role of Cynthia in Sweat, and Sweat is actually an ensemble piece. So you meet this group of friends, essentially, and their children and their partners, but everyone has grown up essentially together. Working at this factory at Olsted's, or there's another character, Brucey, that you will meet, who plays my husband, who worked at a textile mill. So, this is as you mentioned before, it's a blue collar town where essentially everybody works at a factory. And this, it takes place in 2000 and also 2008. So we get a bit of time. Actually, we start in 2008 and we jump back to see how we got there. And Cynthia is a 44-year-old woman who has been working at Olsted's factory packing metal tubes for years, has her eye on a promotion, loves goes hard for her family and goes hard for her friends. And you get to see, with everything that happens around them, how it influences what happens to them, their circumstances, and how then that affects them interpersonally. She has a son named Chris, and a strange husband named Brucey. And you get to see this wonderful, wonderful group of people who love each other and know each other so well, but as time moves on, how people change, how people grow, and the cost of that over time. And then ultimately what essentially happens to them, whether their friendships last the test of time or not. And one thing that I really love about Lynn Nottage's work, and about this work in particular, is that everybody's right. This is a community who works extremely hard, who is extremely proud of each of where they come from and how their families were able to essentially build this factory, build this community, and how that changes over time, and ultimately puts all of them kind of to the test. Everyone is wanting to essentially make the American dream. This show, I think, doesn't necessarily call it into question, but really has us evaluating what that American dream is, and the ways in which powers that be may have reneged on that commitment to folks. And I think, these are also people who don't pull punches. These are not polite people. but they love each other so much.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
a lot of what they say to each other may be very bristly, may be very kind of like in today's society, in today, how we look back on it. One thing that we talked about in the room that Tamala brought up and that we kept having to come back to is in 2022, this is essentially a period piece. It doesn't seem like it,
Mhm.
especially for us who have, been of an age in 2000 and 2008. It doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but no, it's 22 years ago, and times have changed. The way that we refer to each other has changed. The way we talk to each other has changed. The way that we have acknowledged or started to acknowledge a lot of our blind spots has changed. And so it's really interesting in the language of the piece to kind of also understand that it is of the time, and
Mhm.
also that you see a lot of the breakdown that will later lead to things that you see in 2008 happen. So
Interesting. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. My guest is Lynnette R. Freeman. She's starring as Cynthia in the production of Sweat at Guthrie Theater. The show begins tonight, I think, and runs through August 22nd. I could be wrong on the date. Let me double check that. But
August 21st, yeah.
yeah. Okay, great. And the credits or the story on the play say that the playwright spent a couple of years in a Pennsylvania town, just getting a feel for the stories and the flavor. And that's kind of what comes up and shows up. Let me ask you, what, if anything, Lynnette Freeman, in your personal life, puts you in a vein of awareness of the conflicts and the challenges that these people are enacting in this play?
Well, interestingly enough, I was not to tell my age, but interestingly enough, at the time, my mother was going through a downsizing at this time in the play, and from a place that she had been working at for almost, she was just shy of like maybe a month, where all of her big pension and everything was going to kick in. And one of the biggest things was just that I was in college at the time, and to see the level of hurt and kind of also betrayal that she sort of lived through, because this was not what the deal was. If you've worked your entire life, there was a time where you were guaranteed, for the people that you worked for, especially if it was a big company, a certain amount of loyalty, right? Um, that if you did all the right things, worked hard, checked all the boxes, the expectation was, the hope was, not necessarily for everybody, right? Um, but the hope was that, you'd have a pension at the end of the day, you'd have retirement, you could support your family. And to see my mother go through that, where essentially she lost everything. And, then it's like, are we going to lose the house? Are we going to lose this thing? I have a child who's in college. How is that going to work? And the level of redefining, right, that went on. And like, I have a lot of people in my family who have worked for factories and things like that. And so to see the level of sweat equity essentially that you put in, but not to understand that there isn't necessarily that return all the time. And this is even beyond factory work. Um, I'm part of two unions. I'm part of the Theater Actors Union, Actors Equity, but also a part of SAG-AFTRA, which is the film and television, radio. Um, union. And so it's like looking at what sort of happens between the worker, and these products that have to come out. And essentially, you are necessary. People are necessary. But what happens when the powers that be kind of change the game completely? I I've been married before, I've been divorced before. So, that also feeds into it. I don't have any kids, any human kids. I have fur babies. But I have lots of friends who do. I have nieces and nephews. And so, understanding the want, the need, the deep desire to have something for them, to see them succeed and do more than what perhaps you were able to do, right? And I've lived that legacy, from my parents and my grandparents. One side of my family is from Cleveland, by way of the South, and the other side of my family is from Jamaica. So it's like both the immigrant experience and also the African American experience are deep within me. And I lived through those legacies, of people who worked hard as hell, right? And who are like, all right, now it's your turn to do something. And I became an actress. And I love it. And so I'm very happy that they've always been supportive of me. But I'm sure that, they might have wanted me to make a little bit more money in some other guaranteed secure thing. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you.
I love the telling of the story. Thank you for telling the story. It's a wonderful story. Wonderful that you're in the play, but how you describe what you bring personally to the story is important and exciting. And let me bring my friend Brenda Lyle-Gray on camera, because Brenda, you may have questions or comments. And let me tell the readers, the listeners, that following this interview, we are going to be talking with colleagues who are joining us from Venezuela and from Mali. They were kind of standing backstage. We hope that we'll get them back in, but we'll have a conversation about kind of the same kind of things we're talking about in the play, but in real life. And that is, how do we move towards safety, towards healing, towards sovereignty, towards understanding and pursuing our expectations in society. So that'll be the interview coming up after this one. Brenda, how are you doing? And as you listened to Lynnette R. Freeman, thoughts, impressions, questions?
Well, I wished I was in Minneapolis going to the Guthrie in my jeans and my blazer and watching sweat and sweating myself. I wish you the best of luck. What a good plot. I'm a writer, so I love it. So have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
We will. Wonderful story too, how you connect with Reading. I love it.
And I think it's really beautiful how Lynn Nottage, since she spent so much time in this community and interviewed so many people, it comes from a lot of also what's said in the play comes from those interviews. And
my oldest daughter is an actress. She came out of USC.
Okay.
And she went to Missouri Rep. And I'm trying to think of the last play I saw her in. I know she played a sorcerer. It was Rita Dove's play. And I can't think of it, but she was so good in it. But, the times and opportunities and racism within the industry kind of hurt, but she's still going at it. And I'm very proud of her. And my other daughter is a playwright. And she came out of University of Redlands in film and playwriting. So I wish them luck in the entertainment. I was an educator. So anyway, but it sounds interesting though. Is there a book associated with it, or is it just the play?
It's just a play, and actually, most recently, there's kind of a spin-off of the play that was just on Broadway called Clyde's that Lynn
Oh,
Nottage wrote. You will see one of the characters from Sweat in Clyde's, and the mention of several characters
that's so
from
cool.
Sweat.
The
in
doors have opened,
Yeah.
and
Let
I'm
me,
happy for your generation.
Thank you.
the Guthrie website lists 3 things to know, and I'll share those with you. They're important, I think. One, it says that playwright Lynn Nottage is the first and remains the only woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for Drama twice. And she won
Wow.
it for Ruined in 2009 and for Sweat in 2017. Number 2, she wrote Sweat, as I said, after conducting 2 years of interviews with the citizens of Reading, which is in the heart of America's Rust Belt. And the third thing you should know, according to the Guthrie website, is that Nottage had 2 shows open on Broadway in the fall of 2021. You just mentioned Clyde's. Clyde's is a Guthrie commission, formerly entitled Floyd's, that premiered on the Guthrie stage in 2019. And the second is MJ, the musical, featuring the music of pop icon Michael Jackson. And I interviewed Lynn Nottage when Clyde or Floyd was premiered here in Minnesota. Great interview, great production, great show. So I can promise, I think, everyone that goes tonight or in the next several weeks that they'll be impressed and leave enriched and enlivened by the Lynn Nottage experience in this play, Sweat, at the Guthrie Theater. And thanks to you, Lynnette. Lynnette, I'm a Jamaican as well, so I connect to that Jamaican story.
Yes.
All the things that you have to do. You know, who was it? One of the comedians talked about Jamaicans having 7 jobs, 8 jobs, and that kind of describes me.
Yes.
I'm willing to do it. I don't mind.
Yes.
And
Lynn, you know what's so funny? His family has land in Jamaica. So he said, you know what, Brenda? I'm thinking I'm going to bring the show from Jamaica up in the mountains. I said, oh, that would be really good. We'd have dancing and music all the time.
It's incredible. And actually, Jamaica just had the Emancipation Day yesterday. So happy Emancipation Day.
That
one of
energy.
one of the big things that I actually just thought of, similarly, the way that we tie in Sweat that takes place in Reading with here in Minnesota is, we include news that was happening here in Minnesota at the time. Also in similar to what was happening in Reading. And I think that especially with Reading being a Rust Belt town, like I grew up in Cleveland, and what happened during the economic downturn to Cleveland, to all of the factories, it's just like it became a different place altogether. And it becomes essentially the same thing as we see, we see it happening in industry now even. So I think it's if you saw Floyd's or Clyde's and you come back and see this, you'll see kind of how, think of this as the prequel.
Lynnette, thank you so much. Let me tell the listeners and viewers that you can win a pair of tickets to the production at the Guthrie at Sweat. I've got 2. And if you are interested, just send me an email. Send an email to al@insightnews.com and put your name and phone number in the subject line. Put Sweat in subject line, and we'll select somebody and let you know on tomorrow's show who the winners are of these tickets. Lynnette, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Nice
much for
meeting
having
you.
me. It was
Good to
wonderful
see
to
you.
meet you and wonderful to meet you, Brenda.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. I continue. Now, I'm expecting to be joined by a colleague and friend who's responsible for the balance of the show, actually, and that's Brother Jesus Chucho Garcia, a diplomat from Venezuela who's been working with me for, a month or so, but a person who I've known about for years. He's a legendary civil rights, human rights activist, communicator, an intellectual, an author, a musician, a person that's been doing great work in his native Venezuela, in South America and the Caribbean, but also in Africa. He has been in ambassadorial positions from Venezuela to Burkina Faso, I believe, and to Mali and other West African states. He's traveled throughout Africa. I have the good fortune of connecting with him in the past couple of months, and out of that has come the reemergence of a section of our newspaper that we call Afrodescendientes. The premise is that we write and present some of Jesus Chucho Garcia's essays on the African diaspora, present those in Spanish as he writes them. We translate those and present them in English as well. And through the good graces of our friend who joins us regularly from Bahia, Brazil, we also present them in Portuguese. Well, in the weeks ahead, we'll be adding to that the presentation of the same essays and future essays in Yoruba as well.
Wow.
What's the idea? The idea is that how can we create a product, not only in the newspaper, which is physical and local to Minnesota, but because of the digital arena, we can reach people across the planet. And if you're talking about English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Yoruba, you're talking about 1 billion African people. There's a market that can connect, and we want to do that and talk about the challenges we experience and the solutions we create by cooperating, by understanding our histories, understanding African analyses, an Africana way of assembling the world and pointing to futures that reflect liberty, dignity, compassion, community, and possibility, not only for our people, but for all of our brothers and sisters on the planet. Well, I'm pleased to be joined right now by, I see, I can pull up, you can put that screen up if you would. This is a copy of one of the articles that was the first of the articles written by Jesus Chucho Garcia. And the article was called Cambio por la Vida. And it talked about the Afro-descendiente community in Colombia at the initiation and the success of the candidacy for president and vice president that included a vice president candidate who will be the first African woman, Afro-Colombian woman, to serve as the vice president of a nation in South America. Her name is Marquez Mina. And this story talks about that and her running mate, the soon-to-be president of Colombia. Let me begin by bringing in and welcoming Dia Carrida Diakite, who's joining us from Mali. Brother Diakite, good afternoon. How are you? Good evening there.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo está todo bien? Les saluda desde la República de Mali, África Occidental.
Mil gracias, bienvenido a nuestro programa. Queremos hablar también en inglés y en español. Creo que usted habla inglés también, ¿es verdad?
Hablo inglés, pero no tanto, pero español sí, perfectamente.
Okay, bueno. Necesito decirle que no es muy bueno mi español, pero voy a tratar y vamos a tener esta conversación. Y si puedo, voy a traducir lo que dice y we'll have a great conversation. So, first of all, you're in Mali, está en Mali. ¿Qué está pasando en su país ahora? He leído que hay guerra, hay conflictos. ¿Qué está pasando allá?
Muy buenas tardes a todos los televidentes que nos está mirando ahora desde el continente americano. Les habla su camarada, amigo Yaquite Yacarilla, líder político de los movimientos juvenil de Mali y de los países del Sahel, que agrupa muchos países africanos. Muy buena tarde a todos los afrodescendientes que viven ahora en la otra parte de África. Todos saludos desde África, la tierra, madre tierra. Para poder responder a la
let me summarize what you said, and you're saying welcome and thank you for connecting with the African American community, the African community in the West, in the Americas, North and South, and speaking on behalf of the African communities in the Sahel, in Africa. And you're speaking particularly on behalf of a movement. I can't remember the name of the movement. Movimiento que, ¿cómo se llama?
Líder de los movimientos juvenil de Mali.
Okay. Movimiento
de la juventud.
De juventud, okay. No sé qué significa.
Juventud, leader of the youth movement.
Oh, the youth movement. Okay, bueno. Okay, yes. Bueno. Okay, so sigue.
Okay. Para poder responder a su pregunta, ¿qué está pasando en Mali? Hay que ubicarse que Mali es un país del West África que tiene frontera con 7 países. Con Senegal,
Mali is the country in West Africa that has a frontier with 7 other countries.
Yeah, como Senegal, como Ivory Coast, como Guinea, como Mauritania, como Algeria.
Algeria, Senegal, Guinea, Senegal.
Y Mali tiene una población de 20 millones de habitantes.
A 20 million population.
Y un país que es tercer país más grande de África.
¿Otra vez?
Es el tercer país más grande de África.
It's the 3rd largest country in Africa. No lo sabía. Bueno.
Y 1.200.200 al cuadrado. Un país demasiado grande.
Okay, so it's a very, very large country, 1 million square miles, I guess, right? Very large. I'm hoping that we can still get Chucho. There's a map. Great. You can speak to the map. So Mali is there above Burkina Faso, next to Mauritania, Niger, and other countries. We're showing the map to those who are listening on our social media pages. You can watch this. If you're on radio, imagine it in your mind's eye. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. I'm pleased to have this wonderful conversation with Brother Diakite, who's joining me from Mali. He's the leader of the youth movement in Bamako, in Mali.
Yes, Bamako.
Right.
Bamako.
Right. And so we're having a conversation for those who are listening on KFAI in Spanish and with me attempting to translate in English. If I fail, I apologize, but I think it's worth the opportunity to establish the connection and to begin the dialogue. Let me say that if there are members online that are strong Spanish, let me send you a link and you can help me make sure that I'm properly translating what Brother Diakite is saying. But sigue, por favor.
Ok. Para entrar en el tema, hay que decir que Mali es un país demasiado rico porque donde hay riqueza hay problema.
Okay.
Y somos el tercer país productor de oro de África. Somos el tercer país productor de oro. Tenemos uranium, tenemos bauxite, tenemos lithium. O sea, somos un país que asegura casi la potencia energética de muchos países europeos, pero explotándonos.
So Mali is a country that has phenomenal, massive resources in gold, in, I think you said uranium, and other natural resources. And because of that, it's been the object of exploitation by European powers.
Y para hablar, hay que hablar de la destabilidad de Mali a partir del asesinato del coronel de Gaddafi en Libia. Ese problema de Mali empieza desde 2011, donde asesina al coronel Gaddafi.
No sé si puedo entender todo.
¿Okay?
Otra vez, por favor.
Digo, el problema de Mali empieza desde 2011, donde asesina al coronel Gaddafi, el líder libio.
The current problems in Mali began with the assassination of Colonel Gaddafi in Libya in 2011.
Porque la mayoría de la estabilidad de Mali dependía de la estabilidad de Libia, porque los Tuareg de Mali era también Tuareg de Libia, que trabaja en Libia y que tenía vida en Libia. A partir de la destrucción de Libia, empezaron a entrar en Mali y empezaron todos los problemas que Mali ahora está viviendo.
So I'm not sure I understand this correctly, but I'll try. So the problem is that the Tuareg people of Libya are the same as the Tuareg people in Mali. And I think you're telling me that the commerce between for the mining in particular in Mali was controlled by and flowed toward and through Libya, and therein is the problem. Am I saying that correctly? I am not sure. Okay.
Más o menos, yo veo que más o menos, pero more that. Pero lo que hay que entender es que ahora Mali lo quieren controlar Mali porque Mali quiere su soberanía, Mali quiere salir de la dominación europea, por eso nos está atacando el imperio.
So I was more or less on the right track, but the most important thing Brother Diakite is saying is that Mali is pursuing its sovereignty, its independence and freedom from domination, colonial or commercial exploitation by other countries. I think you're saying even Libya, but certainly Europe. Am I correct or wrong?
Is Libya, it's correct. It's correct.
Is Libya one of the forces that suppresses Malian sovereignty? See.
Okay. Because like we want independence, we want to be free, and we want freedom in our country.
Great. Okay.
You understand? Yes. They are not going to leave us because we are a rich country and people want to be freedom, and we are fighting for the new independence.
New independence for your country. Okay. So what's happening? ¿Qué pasa ahora? ¿Hay una guerra? ¿Hay conflicto? ¿Qué está pasando ahora en su país?
Ahora, para hablar de la actualidad, no podemos decir que hay guerra. Cuando uno quiere tratar de liberarse, te impone cosas.
So we can't say that there's a war going on right now, but there is a discussion or conversation about what it means to be free, about our path.
Yeah, porque guerra significa que es guerra entre Estado, guerra entre conflicto, guerra comunitario. No se llama guerra, se llama conflicto interno. Y conflicto interno que tiene su origen desde los países occidentales, que financia a un grupo de burocracia que no quiere liberar las riquezas del Mali para los pobres.
There's not a war going on because the word war implies a conflict between states, and there's no formal conflict state to state. But what you can say exists right now is internal conflict, and the internal conflict is reflected by financing from other powers that do not want to see autonomy and freedom for Malians inside the Malian culture, community, and state. So there's a conflict of parties inside the country.
Y a partir de 2020, cuando la revolución, yo lo llamo así, la revolución ciudadana empezó para sacar al presidente burocrático, para instalar un gobierno legal, un gobierno de transición que aspira al desarrollo del país y que aspira a liberar el país.
Let's see. So, if favor de esperar un momento. Tengo un papel que se llama Crisis in Mali. Es escrito por Congressional Research Services. Y con tu permiso, voy a leer un poco, entonces puede seguir. So what I said is that let me interject here, and for background and for English, for my own understanding and for that of our listeners, share a piece that I pulled from the internet called Crisis in Mali. And it's a piece written by the Congressional Research Service. And it's called In Focus. And, you know, you have to take that for what it's worth. So there's certainly a point of view that guides this. But this is a piece that was updated as of May 23rd, 2022. And it goes, once seen as a regional democratic leader, Mali has become an epicenter of conflict and instability over the past decade. A military junta ousted an elected president in 2020, then overthrew civilian transitional leaders in the following year. Colonel Assimi Goïta now serves as transition president, and populist politician Choguel Maïga as prime minister. The junta has engaged in an increasingly bitter confrontation with former colonial power France, which has led counterterrorism operations in Mali since 2013, and with other leaders in the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, who have imposed sanctions in response to Mali's failure to adhere to a previously agreed election timeline. I'll read one more paragraph, but this gives you a background, at least from a Western point of view, of what the challenges are. This article in the second paragraph says that local insurgent groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are active across central and northern Mali. Other rebel groups, communal militias, criminal bands are also active, some with apparent state backing. A 2015 peace deal between Bamako and the northern separatist rebels has not been fully implemented, and insurgents, state security forces, allied militias, and private military contractors have been implicated in massacres and other abuses. Conflict-affected areas are experiencing crisis-level food insecurity. In 2022, overall, Mali has one of the world's highest rates of acute malnutrition, while global food and fuel price spikes pose additional burdens. And the COVID-19 pandemic has also compounded hardships. Let me stop there. But that gives a sort of a background, and Brother Diakite, you can modify, correct that. So that's a point of view from the West, but it may or may not be accurate. What do you think? Puede entender lo que estaba leyendo.
Sí, sí, entendí lo que estaba leyendo, pero eso no es correcto, porque eso es el punto de vista del imperio que nosotros no estamos de acuerdo.
So this, what I read was not correct because it's the point of view of the imperialists, right? So this is the analysis from imperial forces, the West. So go ahead.
Porque nadie puede conocer el conflicto y la causa del conflicto de Mali más que nosotros que somos malienses.
Nobody can know the conflict, the source of it, nor the solutions to it, other than those of us who are in Mali. We are the center. Go ahead.
Cada uno habla según sus intereses.
And everybody is speaking about this from their own interest.
No van a hablar de la realidad. La realidad siempre está escondida.
And when they speak, the reality, the truth is often hidden.
Nosotros lo que llamamos es un conflicto y una lucha de soberanía que se llama la revolución maliense para liberar al África Occidental.
And so we call this a fight for sovereignty, for Malian sovereignty, and for the liberation of Africa by African people.
nosotros llamamos la Revolución Ciudadanía de Mali.
And we call this the is it Sudanía? ¿Cómo se dice?
Revolution, People Revolution.
The People's Revolution of Mali. Okay.
People Revolution of Mali. Porque nosotros queremos trabajar de tal manera que cualquier presidente que llega debe respetar a la soberanía del pueblo y debe respetar que dar comida al pueblo, porque la gente sufre.
So whoever is elected president, they have to respect the sovereignty of the people and the suffering of the people, and they have to sigue.
Y para redistribuir más riqueza equitable, que los recursos del país aprovecha al pueblo.
Okay, no entiendo. Otra vez.
Nosotros queremos trabajar de tal manera que los recursos de Mali que el pueblo puede aprovechar.
We want to work in whatever manner the people of Mali approve and decide.
De tal manera que habla de mucha manera, habla de mucho calificativo, pero aquí en Mali lo que está pasando solo es una revolución verde que quiere emprender o iniciar una nueva cooperación 50-50, 50-50.
So this is a new, you said verde, green revolution, right? Is that correct? Es una revolución verde, right? No sé si entiendo. No sé.
De tal manera que todos los países, todos los potentes que quieran trabajar a Mali respecta a las leyes, a las culturas, a las religiones, y que la cooperación sea 50-50.
So everything has to respect the culture, the community, and the desires of the people, but no sé lo que significa 50-50. ¿Qué significa 50-50?
Una cooperación, porque de la independencia de África hasta 2020 llevamos 70 años de independencia, pero seguimos en la pobreza, en la ignorancia.
So everything has to be shared, cooperative. 50-50 means cooperative development of policy, of culture, respecting culture. I think I'm not translating properly, but I think I have a feeling. So, favor de sigue usted.
No queremos imponer, no queremos que ningún país impone, queremos trabajar multipolar, queremos trabajar con todos los países del mundo.
We want to work in cooperation with all of the countries of the world. So the main thing you're saying again and again is that we Malians, we want to work. We want to work in cooperation with everyone in the world.
Y si vea la noticia, estamos ahora hablando del nuevo orden mundial.
And we're talking about a new world order. Is that it? New orden mundial?
Sí, nuevo orden mundial.
A new world order. Go ahead.
Y en ese nuevo orden mundial, África tiene que tener una palabra y África tiene que tener voz.
So in the new order, Africa is more than just a word. It's a what? África es más que una palabra, pero es que.
África tiene que tener una voz, porque África no tiene voz en la ONU, en las Naciones Unidas.
Africa has to have a voice in the world. Una voz, right? Una voz. África, yes. La voz de África en el mundo. Is that right?
Sí, es correcto. Por eso Mali es el inicio, pero la revolución de Mali es toda África, porque se va a contaminar a los países, a los demás, para que juntos la revolución de África lleve a cabo para que tengamos la verdadera independencia económica y política.
So we're looking for true economic and political independence, and that is what our mission is here in Mali, not only for Mali, but for all of Africa. True economic independence.
El caso de Mali es solo un ejemplo que está dando camino a los demás países que está siguiendo Mali.
What's happening in Mali, the Malian House, is only one example of the walk towards, I think you said the walk towards freedom or the walk towards the future.
Sí, porque el gobierno actual de Mali es un gobierno soberano, digno y que lucha por el pueblo.
That the government of Mali should be one that fights for the dignity of the people.
Y cuando uno lucha por su independencia, molesta a la potencia y habla mal de África, de Mali, porque estamos tratando de negociar todos los convenios que teníamos hacía 50 años.
We've been negotiating this path for freedom for over 50 years, 50 años, right? And so this work towards freedom and a new order has been going on for over 50 years.
Okay, de tal manera que lo que está pasando en Mali es un buen señal, es positivo, porque la junta militar son militares dignos, militares liberadoras que están liberando al país.
So, no sé si entiendo, creo que dice que you're describing the role of the military.
No, I say what the actual government is. They are working good and is positive. They are working so that Mali can be free in the next year coming. We don't no more go. We want to go on. We don't want to be like what the French people, Occident people, they was doing to our country. We want to stop for everything.
Okay, so what you're saying in part is that the present government of Mali, which is under military control right now, presently, right,
Yes.
is a necessary step towards the democracy and the return to civilian rule in time. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's correct.
Okay. And so the internal conflict in Mali is not just right now. The government that exists reflects the will of the people, but there are other interests that create conflict, that attempt to derail or to slow down the movement towards sovereignty of the Malian people. And I think you're saying that the pathway to Malian sovereignty is the same as the pathway to the sovereignty of other African nations, that all of these must happen at the same time everywhere. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, so sigue. Gracias para su paciencia. Y una lástima que nuestro amigo Jesús Chucho García no podría estar aquí ahora, pero estamos tratando y es bueno.
Ok, eso nosotros es interesante que nos dé las palabras para que los amigos, los camaradas de lucha de otro continente sepan lo que está pasando en Mali, pero que los mismos malienses hablan del Mali, pero no los periodistas ni los demás países. Es importante ese diálogo.
Trata de decirlo en inglés.
I was telling that it's important to have a chance to discuss and explain what is happening in Mali. Not like people saying outside in Mali is not the same like our people, because we say the truth. and we know the reality. Those people, those Western people, they don't want to say reality. And they don't want people to know what is happening in Mali. What is happening really in Mali is not negative thing, it's positive. Because any change need revolution.
Okay. Tell me, favor de decir en inglés, si es posible, su background. What is your work? What is your history? Como líder, what is your story?
Yo personalmente.
Sí. In English, if possible.
Okay, no problem. I will try.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Jakarija Jakite. I am coming from poor country like Mali, and my community is a poor community. You understand? I got scholarship to go and study in Cuba in 2006 and Venezuela. So I got scholarship from Hugo Chavez and from Fidel Castro to have, they give me chance to go to study after my bachelor. So when I came back to my country, I start working so that I can liberate my community, and I work every day and night, because there are a lot of poverty. We are not able, like even big hospital, like people don't have to eat, people don't have school, people don't have hospital. That's truth I'm saying. So that's because the system is like more poverty, and the rich men will be more rich every day. So we try to fight, and we try to make movement. And my movement is like, I'm working with the other people so that we can make new generation for liberate our country, new generation of politicians, new generation of social people, new generation and on all area in our country. So me, I was elected diputado. I was elected diputado in the National Assembly, but for the system, they did not allow me to go and be diputado. That's what we make a revolution in 2022, like 2 years ago, so that we push the president out and we make a coup. That coup is what is going on now in our country. So that me, I'm a fighter freedom for our country, and I am like working for United of Youth, because Mali, we have 20 million population, and more than 16% of population, they are youth under 30 years. So it's a young people. Mali is young people. So me, my own target is like to make discussion and to make connection with America and Afro-descendant people. That's my target. That's I'm working on, so that what is happening in Africa, you can have the new, and what is happening in America in Africa, we can give like a direct connection. That's what we want, so that information is a most important thing in this world. I don't know if I explain myself.
Perfecto. Su inglés es perfecto. Mil gracias. So let me say, we're down to the last 2 minutes. I've been talking with Brother Diakarira Jakite, who was elected to office a couple of years ago to is it a council or but the election.
Diputado en la asamblea, diputado.
Okay, the deputy, you were deputized in the assembly, right? Or the deputy assembly, and that was blocked, and so you were part of a group that helped throw out the existing regime, right? And you represent the young people in Mali, and right now you see the present military leadership as transitional to lead towards a more sovereign experience for the Malian people. Am I saying that properly? ¿Es correcto?
Yeah, it's correcto. It's correcto.
Okay. Listen,
It's correcto.
so the most important thing for our listeners here and on social media is that we are creating a direct contact. And our goal is to be the same as you've described, Brother Diakite, that we talk to each other directly without the benefit of the Europeans or other people. We should, as African people, know each other, speak to each other, find ways to collaborate, and that together we can support each other in our shared mission of freedom and justice in the world.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It's okay. That's true. That's true. That's true. And she doesn't talk. She doesn't talk, and she doesn't say anything. Hi.
Brenda, she's denied you, Brenda.
I'm absorbing all of this knowledge.
Okay, no problem,
Listen, we're out of time.
I hope we have, and we're gonna get another time to
we'll do it again.
Another emission and discussion. I will be very happy.
Okay, we will do it again. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Oh, it has.